we talked about some of the better teams, but some of the most disappointing teams so far this year. I mean, you got to start with Texas A&M. I mean, just a colossal failure, I guess you could
Right.
say. I mean, number one recruiting class ever. Tons of studs coming in, all the hype, all the Jimbo versus Saban drama, um, and they just completely fell flat. The
Yeah, they
offense
just
is
look flat in
is
general.
is terrible. They can't put up points. They have monsters and playmakers all over their defense. They're not playing up to par. Um, yeah, just not a good time for A&M. Miami, Miami is in a somewhat similar situation. They didn't have no greatest recruiting class ever, but look, they still got some high level recruits. Mario Cristobal comes in. They're doing
Right.
some similar things with NIL and making splashes there. And but yeah, the team is not focused. They're not getting wins. In one way, you might say they might be more of an underachiever because they had Tyler Van Dyke coming into this year, and he's a guy that people were talking about being a first round quarterback, and that's just clearly not
Not the
going
case
to
at
be the
all.
case
Yeah.
here. So yeah, they fell flat as well. Another quarterback in Brennan Armstrong for Virginia and his team. I mean, look, he was one of the best quarterbacks last year in terms of passing yards, passing touchdowns, all these kind of stats, and they've just fallen flat. Their offense has not looked the same as last year. Defensively, they were not great last year. They're just as bad this year. So, yeah, definitely some disappointment there. Big 12 wise, both Texas and Oklahoma
Mm.
have been somewhat disappointing as both were the picked as the two teams to kind of lead that conference. Both have underperformed. At least Texas has still
Some
improved
type
record
of life.
wise,
Yeah.
and they have certainly a more promising future. Oklahoma though really they started off okay, and then they had some injuries, and then they really slid down hard.
Yeah.
They've kind of been able to get back in it late, but yeah, just not what we're accustomed to seeing from Oklahoma. Hopefully they could bounce back. Last two teams we'll talk about are some Big Ten teams. We have both Michigan State and Nebraska. Um, Michigan State came out last year, really utilized the transfer portal well. And yeah, and this year they've just been
Been flat.
complete disappointment. We saw we had the videos of the Michigan State players fighting the Michigan players inside of
Right.
Michigan Stadium, and suspensions being handed out to them. That was a disaster. They certainly haven't played up to the standards that that coaching staff and that program have been accustomed to. Especially after you give your coach one of the best contracts in football,
Right.
and
Yeah, you would expect them to be able to put a little bit better product on the field.
yeah,
Um, but again, that kind of it seems like it's a I don't know if it's more so a leader thing because obviously most of these programs they seem to have good coaches. I mean we've talked about even with like Jimbo Fisher. I mean he's not the greatest coach, but he's shown in his past that he can win. Um, I don't know like if it's maybe it is the coaching staff. They're unable to really utilize the personnel that they have. Maybe if they thought like let's just get an influx of talent from the transfer portal and just in general, not even just from the transfer portal, but just in recruiting in general, and let's try to put something on the field rather than actually building like specific schemes towards their strengths. But I mean, nonetheless, just like you mentioned, I mean, it's been really disappointing for the majority of these teams.
yeah,
So
and I'd say Mel Tucker as a coach, I believe in Mel Tucker. I think he's one of the better coaches around, but I think what you do see this as a result of is they were able to get into the transfer portal, hit some home runs last year. Kenneth Walker, was in contention for the Heisman, one of the best running backs. Now we see him in the NFL killing it, right? You
nah.
you, you lose a guy like that, but you're not really replenishing them, right?
Right.
You're able to go into the portal and get guys again, but if they're not going to get you that type of production, then
then
you're
is
gonna
it
see
worth it?
these huge drop offs, right?
Right.
And so you get to see how the transfer portal works, but it's short term. It's all short term with the transfer portal.
Right.
So it's not the same as getting a recruit that you get to develop and you've been with them from the start, and if they want to stay loyal, they stay with you, and you get to build over the years. The transfer portal, you might get a guy, especially an older guy, that you feel that can help you right away. Well, they're coming in, they do good, they're off to the NFL, and good luck next year.
Sayonara. Right.
Yeah. And then lastly, Nebraska, we all know how bad that's been going. They got to fire Scott Frost in the
Scott
beginning of the
Frost is
year.
yeah.
A lot of talk about how they're going to be so much better because they lost close games last year and all this kind of nonsense. But yeah, they're just not a very good team, and they have a lot of work to do in that in and around that program.